is that only 17% of borrowers go back to the same lender.
What's called the dairy button, the red button that I hit.
Hey, remember that?
Right?
And, oh yeah, I love.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Laugh, Lend, and Eat the podcast. And thank you all so much for listening. And thank you so much for the new subscriptions we got last month. It was crazy. I think we got in about 100 new subscribers on YouTube. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And today I have the honor of having not one, not two, but all three of the owners of First Option Mortgage on the show with us. So welcome to Kurt Nikolai, Alvin Shaw, and Sohail Halani. How you guys doing?
Great.
Good. You guys are high energetic crowd. Let's get this thing kind of pumping up a little bit, guys.
We're doing fantastic.
There
Great.
you go. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that. Trust me, this is not live TV, so everything's being recorded. It's no big deal. So listen, I obviously I've been with you guys now for, gosh, it feels like forever, but I know someone since last May of 2020, right, during the pandemic. And I've seen a lot of obviously growth and stuff like that. But, before we get to all that, I kind of want to find out a little bit about, where First Option originated from, where it started from. I know you guys are based in Atlanta, right? I've always been based in Atlanta, right, Kurt?
That's correct.
So I think you were part of the impetus of this company, right? And so you want to take us like you woke up one morning, said, hey, I feel like opening my own mortgage company and I'm going to call it First Option.
I wish it was that easy. I got started in the mortgage business back in the mid 90s. And I worked for one of our competitors, our previous competitors, for several years. And that was back up in St. Louis. Transferred down here to Atlanta to open a third branch for them at that time in 2000. And really just we saw some internal problems with that company, and so we ended up leaving that company, which was a blessing because that company is no longer in business. And then actually partnered with some other guys that were part of that same organization but had left previously. So we got started with that, and we were primarily a broker at that time. My previous partner and I realized that they were not in tune to not only becoming a correspondent lender, but also they weren't in tune to technology. And so we had our grievances amongst ourselves, and we ended up getting forced out in 2003. And thus we started First Option Mortgage at that time.
Let me ask you a question. You brought up the word broker, and that's, and really it's all four of us, whatever. Right now, it seems like the brokers have been having a comeback in the last several years. Obviously, what the years that you're talking about, Kurt, the brokers were more on the downslope. I was around in 2003, 2004 also, and being a broker was not like as almost like the way it is today. It seems like they've done a really good job in rebranding themselves.
I agree. I think that back in the early 2000s, I think that, as you had mentioned, there was a decline in that broker world. We felt as if the next step was to become a correspondent lender. It just felt like the natural progression. Mm-hmm. And we actually started down that path in 2005 and got our correspondency at that time with the help of Countrywide. They helped us through that transitional period. We just felt it was right at that time. We felt that it gave us more leverage. It gave us, I don't know if you want to say just, I'm looking for a word here. It just gave us a better presence.
Yeah,
being our own lender.
I think the way you phrase it, I think is I remember that for myself. I had my own mortgage company also at that time, and it seemed like the way you said natural progression. It seemed like that's the right word. Like if you're really trying to grow a brand, not that you have to, right? But the natural progression does seem like, okay, if I want more control of the processes and not be, at the whim of some other wholesale lender when they want to get the loan done, it does seem like the natural process to take. Now, Alvin, when did you join the company?
I actually joined. I joined in 2003. It was straight out of college. Knowing that if I graduated with a finance degree, the goal was always to be in business for myself. Things in that year didn't transpire the way that they were supposed to. But in the process, I was introduced to the mortgage industry. And so actually, I'm the other way around. I was first 10 years in the mortgage brokerage side. So
Okay.
I only been on the lender side for the last 8 years. So I've kind of seen both sides of it. And I think there's a place for both parties, right? I mean, it really just depends on what the end goal and the objective is. You got a better opportunity to scale when you're on the lender side. So if your intention is to become nationwide and build bigger, right? Then having that extra control and being able to service and whatnot, and service meaning like even just the underwriting and funding, right? Is naturally, it's going to make it a little bit easier of a process as opposed to, like you said, if you're dependent on a third party partner.
Yeah, and obviously there's challenges, right? I mean, guys, I mean, there's challenges being a correspondent lender because you have skin in the game. And I mean, I'm not saying that brokers don't, but I mean, there is a little bit more, you guys are risking more to have that control. And I remember, I don't know if you guys, I mean, I guess we can talk about this, why not? It doesn't seem like the pricing was that much more attractive being a broker versus a correspondent sometimes, right? It felt like, what am I doing all this for? I'm making an extra few percentage points, and that's about it. The risk you take, sometimes you just got to wonder if it was worth it, but I'm sure it's different now with, especially the scale you guys are on. So what has led to this growth? Because one of the things that I've seen here at First Option is that you guys have had some really like maximum growth efforts in the last 24 months.
You know,
What's led to that?
you know, going back to what you said, right, in terms of the different channels and what it is, it comes down to specialization, right? And if you're a broker and you want to specialize in strictly on the sales side of it, right, and entertain your client base, right, and that's what you're going to be the best at, and that's a great place to be. If you're a United Wholesale Mortgage and you want to service the broker community, but become specialized over there and create efficiencies through technology, then that's your place, right? For us, I think as a company, we've seen tremendous growth because we put a lot of different pieces together. You know, all of last year when the growth came, it was scaled growth, right? It was susceptible growth because like our operations department was able to hold through while the supply demand ratio in the market overall was a mess, but we were able to pull through because of our, honestly, I will tell you, I think it was a lot of forward thinking, right, on our end of it, knowing, hey, that this is going to happen and how do we get ahead of the problem. I think it was a lot of hard work that goes on the side of our people. I mean, there was my underwriters, my ops team, they're dedicated. They're dedicated to their customers. They were working their tails off, right, to make it happen and being able to keep up with it. But because we pick certain areas and we specialize and said, all right, how do we become the best at this piece? And then how do we become the best at this piece? Mm-hmm. And then you put that puzzle together, and that's how First Option saw a tremendous amount of growth.
So let's jump over to Sohail over here, because obviously we're talking about history, we're talking about growth, and I know Sohail has to be the one who's counting all the beans, right? To make sure there's enough beans for all the things that we're planning and have been doing for the last 24 months. And I'm sure it's not an easy process. I mean, when you're in charge of finance and all the stuff that you've been doing, so that I see you doing, right? I mean, you're kind of, sometimes I swear, and this is all credit to you guys. Honestly, it feels like sometimes we're trying to put together the engine of a car while it's going around the lap. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but that's the way I see Sohail by sometimes doing.
I'll tell you this, that, like my background, I came from a tax business. 2016, I joined FOM. When I joined FOM, I saw one thing, that there were lots and lots and lots of similarities in a tax business and in a mortgage business in terms of the process. Like we have a tax preparer, you guys have a loan officer, you guys have a processor, we have a processing department. And then, you guys have a closing department. We have a very similar thing, that when the processor processes everything, taxes are being filed, we receive confirmation from IRS, underwriting, the loans are approved, the tax returns are reviewed and approved and sent it to the IRS. And then we get the check where, in this case, our customer gets the check. In your case, customer gets the check, but it is given to the seller or the bank. Right. A lot of those processes are similar. And, one thing I did in my past, I started with the 2 office, and took me about 7 years to grow from 2 to 10, and then another 7 years from 10 to 200. And what I learned is, what you really need to do is, one, you need to make sure that all of your processes are in place. Also, you need to think strategically to make sure when thing goes up or down, you're ready for all the ups and downs. Not only that, also financially, in the tax business, we earn 3 months and we spent 9 months without earning. So that financial needs to be so tight. And I think what I did was starting 2018, I joined them in an operations side and finance side and everything else. And I started looking at everything and I started applying all the skill set that I learned through making tons and tons and tons of mistakes on the tax business, making sure we don't repeat any of those mistakes.
So let me ask you something.
And I'll tell you this, that come 2020, during that pandemic time,
Mhm.
we were operationally strong, we were financially strong, and we were ready for that jump, and the opportunity presented to us, and we made that jump, almost triple our business.
So is it easier to triple your business or is it easier to scale the business while you can control the growth? What's, I guess, is there a balance act there that you have to do, or what are you looking for?
I'd say,
So, good question. I'll tell you this, like I said, beginning of the pandemic and the end of the pandemic, because we were financially strong and we were operationally strong and our business were ready to be scaled, we were able to scale the business and we were able to accommodate all the growth with ease.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to that. You can't just put it together and hope that you build it up as big as you want it. You have to work on the infrastructure, right? So I think in the beginning, we spent and we dedicated a lot of time to making sure that our infrastructure was solid.
Mhm.
And that infrastructure is so many things. It's our people, right? It's our processes, it's our technology. When you put all of that together, and now you feel good about that, you know what? But now I can pile on, and I can pile on, and it won't collapse because we spent so much time working on that bottom layer first.
So Kurt, going back to you, when we talk about that infrastructure, obviously, you've been at it, right, since 2003, 2004, right? And I know some of the people that are part of your infrastructure. Where did you come up with these ideas? Did you just replicate them? Did you, because sometimes, imitation is the best form of flattery, right? Or did you say, hey, I want to think outside the box? Because I will tell you this, some of the things you guys are doing here, the rest of the industry is not doing. And I can tell you that when I've talked to other industry folks, they're like, are you sure you're doing that? It takes a while for them to really, even myself, to really wrap my head around, yeah, they're really doing it that way.
I think a lot of it is dependent on obviously your employees. It's taken us a long time to get to where we are, but I do believe that from a management standpoint, we have, an all-star team. And the second thing is we listen to the field. The field is going to tell you where the issues lie, and then it's up to us to come up with solutions to figure out how to solve those problems. I look back on it, it's been a journey. It hasn't been easy. We've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and we've made a lot of mistakes. But there's nothing wrong with making mistakes as long as you learn from those mistakes and then you implement processes that solve those mistakes moving forward. And we've been really, really good about doing that.
So Kurt, dive deeper a little bit. Give me a mistake you made that you learned from. Like something that, like I can look back in my career, I'm sure all three of us can, right? And say, oh my God, yes, I remember that mistake. And thank God, because that mistake led to this new thing that I came up with. Give me a mistake.
Well, some of the bigger mistakes, and I keep falling back to 2007, 2008, when things really hit the brakes. There were a couple of things that happened during that period of time that will never leave my mind. First and foremost, you never put all your eggs in one basket, whether that's warehouse banks, whether that's investors. With the warehouse banks, you got to have multiple. You got to have great relationships with each, and you've got to treat each with respect and give them proper amount of volume, right?
Nice.
The other thing too is we internally, we don't close the loan if we don't have a secondary outlet.
Sure.
You're going to run into situations where you do make a mistake. You need to have a second option. And back prior to 2007, those two things weren't ever really a concern. Knock on wood, we went through 2007, 2008, and there was only one loan that we couldn't unload. And then we had a warehouse bank step up and bail us out from another warehouse bank that decided that they weren't going to do business with us anymore. So, and that's through relationships. That's through who you've learned and trusted over the years. And that goes a long way with me, because I still have relationships that probably are 15 plus years in this business.
Yeah. So looking forward, guys, I mean, look, we all just came back from the Vision 2021 Summit, and Alvin, I mean, the amount of people we had at that summit, I mean, I don't know what Christine thinks, but I think we probably had about 10% of the crowd there, right? I mean, that's a huge amount of people participating from one company at a summit. Now, I know it was, I think, 300 people, right?
Yeah.
And I think we had close to 27 or 28 people show up from First Option. Hey, did you plan that, or did you just open up and say, hey, guys, let's go down to the summit?
It's somewhat planned. I mean, it wasn't planned to the point where it was like, all right, well, you're going. I think the seeds were planted, much in advance, because it's not just, I just picked up a bunch of people showed up. They were part of the program, right? So, I mean, when they're coaching with Christine and with Ray, there's a familiarity. There was an award that was given out. I think we had like 9 Women with Vision Award winners. So,
right.
When they're winning, right, others want to be a part of that. I think it's interesting because you said we were at 10%, give or take, but I think it's growing. I mean, part of what you learn through this coaching is how do you put your name out there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we did such a phenomenal job this time that even internally, our own people were like, hey, how do I get this? What do I got to do to be a part of that? It's part of that society, and how do we win, right? Because I think that's what we've created here is a culture where we all win together, right? We grow together, right? And I think that's what sets First Option apart over a lot of our competition, because internally it's about our people. I tell people we're a people company. We're just doing mortgages, right? Yeah. Because that's the culture and the communication we've built up internally.
So maybe you just do your awards trip to the summit every year.
Oh God,
who needs to go to the Caribbean or Mexico, right? You just go to Tampa, Florida. Same thing.
Be a lot of people.
So the reason I brought up the summit is because I had a lot of conversations that were around the summit, right, about technology and the technology that's going on in the industry today. There's a lot. I mean, I know me and Kurt have been in the business since the mid-90s. Alvin, you've been in the business several years as well, but you're new to the industry. But still, we're at a point where technology is it. Like, we can't say anymore 5 more years, 3 more years. It's like, it's here right in front of our faces, right? And you guys are probably dealing with it a lot more than I see, right? But it's like, where do we go with the technology? How do we use it? Where is it best applied? Like, especially with the AI pieces I keep hearing about. Who wants to tackle that question? Nobody. Okay, next question.
I can take it. Technology's been here for many years, right? I mean, 5 years ago, we were talking about CRMs and point of sale systems, right? In all reality, now it's competitive in the technology world, right? Because there's so many different people that want to play in that space. I think technology is now changing to where it's no longer just the front of the house anymore, right? Like, with the CRMs and whatnot. Now technology is taking over the back of the house.
Right.
And that's where your machine learning and your AI come into place, because we can do so much more in the mortgage industry, right? With the amount of the same staff that we have, if we were to properly utilize our technology.
So, I mean, Svelba, you had something to say about the AI piece.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna add to this, and what I have seen in our tax industry, preparing tax return from hand to everything electronically. I think this is what's going to happen in this mortgage industry. I already don't know how much time is going to take, but it's not going to be, I would assume probably 5 to 10 years down the road. This whole dynamic of, all the paperwork and all the documentation, everything will go electronic. I mean, everything will go electronic, and loan officer will be able to do a lot more loan, and there will be new companies that will pop up who are so efficient in processing the paperwork. Instead of doing loan in 30 days, they should be able to do loan in, like, say, about 3 to 5 business days. And that's what we are looking at. And, whatever company is unable to catch up with that technological advancement will fall apart, and all those new companies will pick up those companies which are falling apart. So there will be some winners and losers moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a concentration, it'll be
Yeah.
tough for a lot of small companies.
I will
think,
say, I will say this real quick is that, something you said, Alvin, just sparked this thought in my head, was that while there's been technology since, look, when I got in the business, Kurt, you may remember, like, we used to have the modems that you put the telephone on to get the credit report right on the dot matrix printer. Right? That was technology, right? Because now you weren't waiting for the guy to fax it to you. You could actually dial the phone yourself, right? So what I've seen is like, there's been variations, right? But what I'm seeing in the last 24 months is new development. So the variation is not stopped, is now, there's no more variations of the same technology, right? It's like there's a brand new CRM platform all of a sudden. There's a brand new AI platform all of a sudden. It's not some enhancement that was already in place and they said, oh, now you can tweak it this way. And so that's really what I'm talking about, is the new development, the new technology that's out there that's living and breathing, and you're able to kind of like let loose with clients and predict when they're going to buy a house. Yeah. The artificial intuition, not intelligence, but intuition. That's the kind of technology that's really getting me all excited.
One of the things I will tell you, and Fabi, we've been in it for a long time. This past year with the pandemic, I think was good for our industry. I think it's forcing us to look at our industry differently. Absolutely. Because we were always so far behind of all other industries when it came to technology, when it came to automation. And I think these past 18 months has done our industry a world of good. And I think now we've got a momentum that will continue pushing us forward to all these new technologies that are out there. So I'm really excited about where things are going.
Yeah, I'll say one thing, there's some new players in the game right now, right? From what it was back in 07, 08. I mean, right now, technology requires investment, right? And that's an upfront, you got to swallow it. Here's what it is, deal with it, right? And then become better at it. Now, the newer players that are in the game today are coming out with a mindset that this is not negotiable. Like, this isn't a choice. Either you're with it or you're not with it, right? And I think that's what's making all of the older players now saying, well, crap, we're going to fall behind if we don't keep up with these young cats.
Yeah. I mean, Kurt mentioned Countrywide, and, if you remember, Countrywide was like a huge player, right? And the thing on Countrywide was no one could ever buy them because their servicing pool was so large, until Bank of America showed up one day and bought them out, right? And that's why I kind of see technology, to your point, Alvin, is that technology seems like this really big price tag, right? But somehow or another, someone's going to come around and pay the price tag, and then the rest of us are going to follow.
I think there's two parts to the equation, though, Fabi. Yeah, there's a price to the technology, but then on the flip side, you also have to take a look at what is this technology going to save me in the long run? Mm-hmm. Because I think with a lot of the technology that's being put out there, it creates more efficiency. So do I need as many man hours, or do I need as many employees to get that same job done with this new technology? So that's a two-part equation that you have to look at.
So to the grocery store, the analogy, right? Because I don't know about you guys down in Georgia or Florida, but here in DC, we have those grocery stores with the self-checkout aisles. Have you seen those? They've been around for years, right? And I asked my wife one day, we were checking out, I said, we're checking these out ourselves. Shouldn't there be a discount? Because they're not paying an hourly wage to anybody, right? To check me out anymore. They don't have the guy putting stuff in the bag, right? I'm still paying the full price for that, bottle of barbecue sauce or whatever I'm buying, right? And there's no discount to me. Is that the replacement we're looking at in the mortgage industry, where the human being that used to run one cashier is now overseeing 7 cashiers?
I think I'll take that one. So I want to bring it back to the mortgage industry, right? Because I think the role of each individual within the organization, within the industry has changed. Your loan officers are no longer paper pushers, they're problem solvers, right? Because that pushing the paper part that we were doing, now that's getting automated, right? Like, so I was saying, hey, you know what, at some point we're going to be able to go through a loan process without many humans involved. But that doesn't mean that that human is gone. That just means that that human is now, restructured to be the face of the company, to go out and get the business, to build a relationship, to help, obviously there's going to be conventional paper easy loans, but there's difficult loans too, right? So it becomes a specialization, right? Our underwriters, instead of them clearing certain easy conditions. Now they're looking at the harder stuff and say, well, let me read all these tax returns, right? So the quality of the individual in the industry, it goes from one level to the next level because technology forces them to lift themselves.
So I'll tell you this. I have a little bit of a different view of what Elvin said. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to have a two type of customer, and one type of a customer which Elvin just mentioned. Needs a relationship. That relationship customer will keep going down, and there will be a smaller portion of that customer, but there will always be a customer out there. They need support and they need like service. What is going to happen is as millennials start buying home and as Generation Z starts buying home, they will use more and more technology where they are not looking for a relationship and they're looking for price. So I think there will be a market which is very technology driven and price sensitive, and not like a grocery store, but when all those technologies are implemented, those people, the millennial and Generation Z, will get a better price because all the saving that are being achieved by utilizing technology will be used to compete towards the price, because there will be more than one company, and those several companies, because they're achieving so much saving, they will compete in an area. There will not be a lot of companies. There will be like 2-3 companies or maybe 4 or 5 at the most who will be just focusing on the population who don't want relationship at all. They can just do all the work themselves, like a grocery aisle.
There was a survey done by Capital One Bank a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. I can't remember, maybe 18 months ago. And they did a survey of all the millennials. And surprisingly, they came back, Capital One Bank did, with the survey, said, hey, guess what? The millennials actually want human beings servicing them. They don't want the technology. When it comes to their finance, when it comes to their money, they want the human being there. And thus, Capital One now started, over here at least, these things called Capital One cafes, where you can go in, have a cup of coffee, and discuss your finances with a Capital One banker. So they integrated some thoughts, but they were still able to have that touch, you know what I mean, in an environment where they felt comfortable. So it was like a boutique setting.
That's what they're saying. Like this next generation, they wanted it at their terms, right? So instead of you calling them and saying, hey, I got something for you, they want to start off online, right? But once they've now made a commitment that, I want to do this, they're going to do their research first, right? But then afterwards, they want the service too, because they do want to deal with somebody. The lower generation, the younger generation, they don't trust the banking system. So they want to see somebody face to face and say, all right, now I want to make sure you're doing a good job with it.
And I think they also want the environment, which was really critical in the study to me, which Capital One's was, that they want an environment that is not the one that their mom and dad grew up in. So it's not about the branch being open from 9 to 2. It's a cafe. It's a wine tasting thing. It's a oil painting seminar, and you're going to discuss your finances at the same time. You know what I mean? All these different things that I've been seeing my local Capital One Bank do, that they're inviting a bunch of people out. Hey, come out and learn how to paint while we discuss your retirement. I'm like, this is just, I mean, once again, they're thinking outside the box, right? And they're creating a feeling and a moment. And then in that feeling, the moment, they're anchoring their tools and their products within that consumer.
So I think what they're doing is, this is their marketing technique. In our time, we watched an ad. We looked at the television. We looked at the newspaper. I think all those things are history. Now the connection is made through social environment. Whether meeting in the coffee place or whether on the Facebook or whatever app out there, and making a connection, internet connection and the physical connection through all those vehicles.
Yeah. So you invoked the social media thing, so I'm going to go through that door now with Facebook, right? And you said the Facebook, so I think that we can see where this is going to end up now. So all three of you guys have Facebook. I know that for a fact because I've seen you all and I've friended you guys on Facebook, right? The only one that's active is Alvin.
That's because he's a lot younger than us.
Yeah, they got like 10 to 15 years on me.
So
I want to make a comment here. Kurt, even though Alvin is a lot younger than us, when I talk to my kids, they go, Facebook is for old people.
It is actually old people now because the kids have moved on because
Instagram.
what my daughter said to me is she didn't want to be on the same platform that her father and mother were on.
Correct.
So she moved on. Now they have Instagram and TikTok and God knows what else, right? But where does social media fit in with where we are as a mortgage industry? Because, once again, back to the summit, right? It was all about marketing. It was all about, I was on that panel for UTV, Like, so basically, Alvin, you've created your own TV on Facebook, right? Whether you realize it or not. And you're showing the world, this is who I am. If you come work for me, this is my life and I'm sharing it with you. Kurt, you've done something, I don't know what.
Not much.
Not much.
I will tell you though, attending that Vision Summit last week, I think what I learned, and again, I think it's critically important. People want to deal with people that they have some form of connection with, right? And especially those that are out in the field, loan officers, those that are dealing directly with the public. I think it's critically important to have that. Now, again, I'm not saying that, Sohail and I need to have a Facebook that is interactive. The people we deal with are on a different level. But somebody like Alvin that can connect through that, I think that he has that ability to do that much more so than Sohail and I. You're trying to teach old dogs some new tricks, and it just doesn't work sometimes. But I do think it's critically important. I do think people do want to know who they're working with before they actually start working with them. And I think it's a great platform to be able to do that.
One thing is also what happens is, your interest and your work. If those two somehow requires you to use those social media, and like I said, your interest and your work, then it's just, becomes part of you and you become, because I see some people who are way older than me and they are like so active on Facebook and Instagram where, sometimes my kids go, I don't know why this person is on Instagram. There is no restriction. And it is your interest and your need. Those are the two things that dictate you to do whatever you need to do. And I feel this technology is not difficult to use. It's just whether you want to use it or not.
It's a commitment, right? But at the end of the day, you said it, like, you want to do business with who you trust, who you know, who you can resonate with. And all the social media is just a platform to tell your story, right? Because it's in this virtual world right now, how do you let other people know who you are, what you're about, what your philosophies are? This is how you put it out there. That's just, this is your projection of your company and who you are as a culture.
Do you guys ever see, and I haven't seen it yet to the point that I'm about to ask you guys, but I have seen a figment of this where companies will start getting social media, like a social media officer, right? This is like you have a corporate financial officer or do you see somebody actually controlling the social media branding? Because look, there is a certain amount, some other companies don't want certain things put out on social media of their employees, right? And there's a lot of companies that say, hey, look, you can't do that, you can't do this. And they're controlling the individual social media platform, not even the corporate one, but just the individual. Is that gone too far, or is that appropriate given the nature of our business?
I personally think the word control is not an appropriate word, but I think there is a need where there must be somebody in the company who can go, hey, you know what? Let's not do something that is inappropriate. And I think disciplining in a way where, removing or not showing your company, promoting those inappropriate, whether it's, whatever you call a video clip, comments, things like that. Because, one of the drawback of this social media is you can just go and say whatever you feel like it.
Yeah.
Sometime it may not be appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because we're just dealing with something very similar to this right now.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, in this world, that exactly what you said, control, right? When you tell people, hey, you can't or can do this, can or can't do this, now all of a sudden you're taking away my rights, right? And so there is a fine line there, but you don't want somebody, you know, misrepresenting who you are as a
Right.
company either, right? So I think a lot of education goes on that behind on that side of it to say, look, guys, this is who we represent, right? I mean, you know, we do a lot on our end of it, try to push charitable functions, things like that, because we want to show the world that, look, hey, we want to help people. We want to give back to the communities, the communities that we're in as well, right? So that's one thing to do it. But then you kind of find somebody else on their own personal pages, and you're like, oh my god, what is
No,
going on?
I had a loan officer who was actually posted on one of the couple of years ago, but on one of the pages, you know, hey, look, refinance or purchase now, whatever, and I'll refinance you for free in the near whatever. I mean, I don't think he gave a timeline. And I called him and said, how can you say you'll refinance somebody? You don't know what the rates are going to be. I mean, if you're selling 4.5% today and 12 months from now, they're 6%, you know what I mean? He goes, oh, who cares? It's just social media. And that line just stuck inside my head when he said that. Like, it's just, and it's you're representing my company. You're representing the brand, and that begins to cross the line.
He was going to buy one, get one free loan?
Kind of like, it could have been that, Alvin. Yeah, I mean, it could have been that.
And I'll tell you this, Bobby, I agree with you. The word that you said is, if it is a company social media, then, you know, we as a company have an image out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that image, you know, brings people in. And not only that image brings people in, but based on that image, we act with each other. And if that image is being destroyed, you know, some of our action and some of our reputation may get destroyed.
Yeah.
So one, we need to make sure internally that, you know, we are like we present a family image. So first we need to make sure that internally we are acting as a family, you know, regardless of who you are,
Right.
and where you come from, or what you do, you know, because this is how it works in the family.
Yeah.
You know, we don't see a one person different based on his success or based on his job or based on his ability. You know, we treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
Same thing here. And if that image is not being presented somehow, and if that may be the personality of the person, then we need to reconsider that person or the message that has been given out by that person.
And it's also a two-way street, right? I mean, I know that in the past when I've received resumes, I Google them, right? I want to go see their Facebook page. I want to go see what they're doing. And I will be honest about this. Back in the days of MySpace, right, going back a couple of years, there was a lady who was coming on board as a loan officer, and I didn't hire them because she had a picture of her and a baby in a high chair with a bunch of empty beer bottles around the baby on a table. And I saw that picture on their MySpace account, and I was like, you know what? I don't really want that person representing my company. If they're posting a picture of a baby in a high chair, which I think is their baby, and a bunch of empty beer bottles on the table around them, you know what I mean, knocked over, that's not the kind of person I want working for my company.
Yeah.
So I think we do have to be, it's a two-way street, right? It's not just you're representing the company, but you're also representing yourself to a potential employer, which has been a hot topic for years anyway.
You know, I think, you know, marketing agencies and marketing companies can create a persona of who you are as a company, right? Or as an organization. I personally, in my personal opinion, I feel like my persona and my organization is built of the people that are involved in that organization, right? So that's what it should be, right? So like I said, you know, the family environment, acting like it, you know, and that can be, you know, fighting, also getting along, right? It's everything, right? That comes with it. Educating, teaching, you know, passing that information on. That's who we are, right? And so when you get the top 30 people within the organization, you put them all in one room, which is kind of what we did at the summit, right? And you said, hey, you know what? They all get along. Look how much fun they're having together, right? It's
that one picture on that street was amazing. Right? We were all on that street there. I don't know where we were, but it was a like crazy ass picture, man.
The Acropolis one, yeah.
Yeah. I think Whitney was
You
dancing with
enjoy the
one of the
hookah?
waitresses.
So,
You know,
so-
probably to your original point, though, do you need to have somebody that actually monitors your social media? I think you do in today's day and age. You know, you know, we work so hard to build our reputation. To have one individual that could tarnish it, it's something that everybody has to be aware of. You know, and it's going to be a necessary thing moving forward.
Yeah. Look, we're coming up to the end, and I got to ask this one question. So I know that this actually has gone by a lot quicker than I was supposed to, but there seems to be a balance that you three have struck. At least that's the what we see on the outside. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, right? But from the outside, it seems like you three have struck a balance which is very unusual. By the way, let me just say that, okay? To have a balance like what I'm seeing and I've seen and witnessed. I mean, where does this energy come from where you guys recognize, hey, you know what? Alvin does this really well. Kurt does this really well. Sohail does this really well. I'm okay with that. I don't need to step on their slice of the pie. Where does that energy come from, Kurt?
Well, first and foremost, I think that, you know what, it just happened. Because I think first and foremost, you know, I take a look at Alvin. Alvin has got, you know, that personality to go out. He talks to people. He engages. Sohail brings, you know, something completely different. He's got the accounting aspect. He completely understands where we're at always financially. And he also understands that from the model that he was in, this is how you go from 2 to 10 to 200, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the journey that we've been on. My experience kind of falls on the compliance thing and the operations side. So I think we all have our lanes. I think we respect each other's lanes. We talk a lot. It's not that we don't disagree, but I think we all can come to a conclusion that, yes, this is the best way we move forward as an organization.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to what Kurt said. So, you know, a lot of business, you get in and you do everything. And obviously, sometimes you do a good job and sometimes you don't do a good job, and it's okay. When I came in here, and operation was my strongest suit. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the financial. I'm going to do the secondary. I'm going to do the operation, you know, one at a time. And there's so much work. There's so much to do. So when, you know, when I started in accounting and a secondary and IT, I got it by default because, you know, we had some problems in IT.
Right.
And I had an experience in all the field. So I wanted to start with accounting, but I started with IT first. So after having those 3 items in my hand, I really don't want to touch what Kurt and Alvin is doing. I got plenty on my plate. And I feel the same way for Kurt and Alvin, that they go, you know what? I have a plenty on my plate. As long as Sohail is doing his job and he's not messing things up, and vice versa, I don't want to touch it. We will touch each other's department if we see a need. And that kind of like just automatically created our own lane, just having so much to do and so much to improve. And
it wasn't anything like you guys
conceptually-
planned. I mean, you guys never talked
No.
about like
No.
this kind of. I mean, it sounds like a band that I was in, right? Everybody just got showed up with an instrument, said, "Okay, I play bass guitar." You know what I mean?
That's
I would
kinda what
say it's
happened.
very,
That's kinda
very
what
similar to
happened.
that. Yeah.
It was the universe saying, hey, you 3 together might be able to do some good things out there. Go at it.
And that's interesting. I mean, I thought for sure you guys had some planning discussions before, you know what I mean? You guys decided to do something together, and no, nothing.
No, and here's the thing. I mean, and we're not afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of times that Sohail and I, or Alvin and I, will tackle something together because we bring each, you know, something that we can bring to that conversation. But we all seem to have our own lane, and I think we respect each other for those lanes, and it's worked out well so far. So
you know, one thing I'll tell you, Fabi, that, you know, conceptually, we are on the one page, you know, a lot of times, not all the time. Conceptually, you know, when it comes to customer service, when it comes to, you know, treating a low, when it comes to margin, when it comes to, you know, working with, so if you have to pick 10 area, you know, I would say good 8 area, we have consensus.
That's amazing.
And the two area that we don't have a consensus, we somehow able to create a consensus. And that is the strength of three of us.
That's cool. That's cool. Alvin, where do you see First Option? I mean, today is June 22nd, 2021. Let's just go to 2025. I mean, June, 2025. Where is First Option?
We're having so much fun right now. It's like keep this momentum going, but it's a balancing act, right? So while last year was amazing and this year is building up to be great, keeping that balance of people and processes and making sure that everyone's working together so that we don't get to the point where we're no longer that family feel. Right, that's what's important, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, we can get as big as we want to, right? And we have some pretty aggressive goals, but it's got to be sustainable, right? And I think that's what comes down to, believe it or not, we're selective. We don't just hire anybody.
Sure.
I mean, we'll talk about it because we want to have like-minded people that are part of the same growth strategy and the same mindset as we are, so that we're all doing the right thing by each other, and then the sky's the limit.
Yeah. All right.
I'm
look,
going to
guys,
give you an example, Fabi. This
sure.
is a party which is invitation only. and this party will continue as long as the organizer of this party, which is me, Elvin, and Kurt, are doing an amazing job to entertain those people who wants to join the party, invitation only.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for the invite. I appreciate it. I hope in my college days, I used to get kicked out of parties. I hope that doesn't happen on this one. I'm not sure what that was attributed to, but I always found myself getting kicked out. Anyway, look, we are at the end of the hour here. Thank you so much. We've gone way past what I thought we were going to do, but it's always good conversation. I appreciate y'all's times. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for the company and honestly, the industry. I think there's a lot of buzz about this in the industry right now that's positive for all of us. So I think at the end of the day, we're making an impact. I know you three are leading the charge and I appreciate that. So once again, thank you for your time and we are out, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Bobby.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Laugh, Lend, and Eat, the podcast. You can now enjoy Fabi's article, Laugh, Lend, and Eat, featured in the Vision magazine. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where each month we are giving away some swag for our lucky listener to show off. Thank you to our sponsors for their continued support, First Option Mortgage and One Good One Recruiting. And remember, you have to be something, so be kind.